for me, whereas the process would be the superset for me. So I might have a process, may not be present in a particular company, looking at the contract. But then at that point of time, I'm ensuring that, okay, whatever controls I'm not looking at because I have a reason.
Absolutely, you are absolutely right. What you will do as a part of your audit, you are getting what are the artifacts you want. As you know, before the audit, you want some of the artifacts. In that, actually, if the process doesn't permit you to take the contract, you should go and make a process change. That contract should be, one of the artifacts to be given for contract.
So the question here is that whenever we go for any kind of outsourcing related audits, what is the process checklist or process checks we do? I mean, what we keep, what process guidelines we keep in the back end, and then we do these checks.
So client A and client B, your checklist will not be same.
Yes.
No. I'm not talking about. No, maybe I'm not talking about the checklist which is specific to the company from the contract perspective. I'm talking from
generally.
the generic.
Oh, yeah.
For example, ISO 20001 for that matter.
Sure.
Is for IT security, PCI for PCI specific.
Yeah, so in that case, again he pointed out that you need to look at the outsourcing arrangement very carefully, legal arrangement, the contractual arrangement. So if you client A, you might have a different contractual arrangement, client B might be having a different contractual arrangement. So before committing a scope in and scope out of your audit, you must gather information about your client quickly. Then only you must finalize your scope in and scope out. And therefore you must look at what are the areas you look at in outsourcing. A lot of areas. You look at the risks that are there. Each of the risk you need to mitigate. You need to look at the strategic aspects. You need to look at why it's been done, what are the competencies there, what is the quality of the service provider, what are the credentials, how was the selection done.
But maybe in this list you might find something is missing or something is not added because
Surely.
I have not seen the basic checklist, which processes or such audit checklist gives me as a standard. So that's what the idea.
Definitely.
I think you can go and refer to our ISACA, some of the guidelines. They are available. Yes. Absolutely.
So you must have a framework for COBIT or ITIL as he says. But more than that, you would get a lot of pointers in the guidelines note that ISACA has issued. You will get your checklist items. But there are many items. To name it a point, of course, is the contractual arrangement, then the cost considerations, strategic considerations, quality of service provider, ability to do surveillance and third-party review of the outsourcing service provider, then what kind of reviews are done, what kind of reports are presented, what are the accesses of the third-party provider, service employees, how are the employees selected, what's the background check, all that will governance, right from governance to execution, complete aspects would need to look into. An outsourcing review will be more complex than a normal review, in my opinion. If you have a client A who's not outsourced, a client B who's outsourced, that is more heavier, more intensive, more expensive, more complex. Means more time to be spent and more cleverly checklist to be tweaked, customized. So it's much more than the normal, which is the layer-based approach of application, databases, operating system and network. Other than that, you need to look into additionally all these aspects. You are a question.
Yeah, while you explaining the factors, it seems that's going to the client A, client B means you are thinking more of a internal audit is being done from maybe a big four firm or something like that. See, many of the organizations, I am from one of the company in the Middle East, where especially the government-owned organization, which is very big in nature, by size, but the government is the owner and the management is run completely by a separate group of people. The internal audit head and the whole internal audit team is being appointed by the government himself directly, and they reports to the audit committee and board from who all representative of the different governments. The structure is different there. Now, say you were chief internal auditor there, and now you need to define the scope about the IT audit. Now there is no client A, client B. There is only client X. Alas, finish.
So
within that only you need to finish.
I was internal auditor at very companies, Credit Lyonnais, Standard Chartered, and even in the Middle East. So Middle East, I was appointed as the one of the company, and yes, Prime Minister of that country was the owner of the bank. So yes, to answer your question, you must adopt a risk-based strategy. So
No,
you
my
look at,
question is relating to that little bit, that say the scoping the audit, whether it is an IT related audit or any audit by that sense of it, which is under the scope of internal audit, is very much depending on the knowledge and the risk understanding of the CIA. It's not that either your owner is coming and telling you that okay, this is things I wanted to know. They don't know really what they
owner
know.
is not going to help you.
And again, the management, if you go to the management, they want as low as possible, better you go it. So they will not come up and say, this is my scope. So what is really to be scope, you need to define. Under that
Absolutely.
kind of scenario, which is mainly prevailing in the Middle East, almost in all the Middle East country. Now, when you discussing this matter, if you highlight from that perspective as well, it will help us on that.
Surely. So what you need to do is, you need to have a charter first signed by your key client, which is the CEO or the MD of the bank or the organization. So you get the key client to sign an audit charter, which is 2-3 page outlining what is your scope, overall scope. Share the charter with the owner in the board presentation. 1. 2, meet all the stakeholders. You meet all the SBU heads, you meet all the supporting function heads like CFO, who will be your great help, and also the other functionaries, IT head, etc., etc. Find out, gather information about the company, about the competition, about the market, about the industry, about the government, about the regulations, about the laws. Then find out from all of them individually what are the risks that they perceive are key risks. Then make a risk paper saying that okay, these are the risks that I have gathered from so many people. My own assessment, these are the risks. Finally, this is my risk assessment. Go by area, function by function. Again get sign-offs from your stakeholders. Put it to the board. Get a sign-off or approval from the board. These are the risks I perceive and this is my risk-based audit calendar for next 3 years. High risk I will do every year, medium risk once in 2 years, low risk I will do once in 3 years. So you must share your risk assessments with your key stakeholders. Get it approved by the board. Share your strategy with the stakeholders and also the clients or the auditees or colleagues. Get that approval, accent. Then you will get lots of inputs. They'll tell you, no, I feel this area is not risky, this area is less risky. Or this area, so you ask him why, why do you think so? They'll give you reasons. I have this control, which I never told you when we met. But here is my proof. These are the controls that are there. Then you will naturally bring down the risk. It's a very dynamic function. Risk assessments are to be done every month for a high risk area and probably quarterly for medium and low risk areas. So you bring down the risk or go up the risk, and as you see the risk color and the risk scores, you do the audit. So that's how it is. It's very dynamic. But it must be, you must have a formal process. You must meet monthly once at least with all your function heads, which is called audit committee or a control committee or whatever committee you might call it.
Just to add last, maybe without taking much time, see what exactly coming to the first session also now, which is relating to this session as well again. See, unlike that you come from the big four and they define the scope and agree with somebody, and then you are limiting within that scope and then trying to do the audit. In in-house internal kind of auditing there. Now when you go inside, you go with some scope, and then when you go inside to find out, no, we are missing some important areas.
Of course.
Now when you try to approach that areas, then you will feel
Pandora's
steep
box.
resistance. Now the management will come and say, well, this is not there in the scope. Board will say, I am not aware about it, you defined your scope.
Correct.
And if you don't do that, then it will, you are uncovered some major risk area.
Absolutely.
And it was not known when you are really deciding the scope. Now it is nobody's zone area, what to do now on that stage.
That is the
difficult on
occupational
that.
hazard you live with. But that's not the right answer. Answer is it's your responsibility at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You must talk to people, get risks out, as Father John said. You must make people confess to you what the risks are. Get the risk sign off, present it to the board. But there are a lot of people in the board or in the management with white hair and experience. They will help you. They will tell you, look, you are disregarding this area. I think you want to add.
Sundar, just to add here, see, it is like organizational change management, you call it as. Means, is the organization ready to look from a risk perspective and do such investments and then take it forward? So one is you are doing your attempt as a personally. There is something called as a sponsor in the company. A sponsor should be one who is very interested to do that, number one. Or you should have some opinion leaders in that organization who have to help you out. So for example, delivery guys will always say, don't come to me, everything is fine. But if you see all the delivery projects or consulting projects, at least there is like either schedule overrun by 50% or effort overrun by 20-25%. Always it happens.
RR, no, what he's saying, Middle East scenario is very, very different.
Correct. Hence,
Just to add here, say Middle East scenarios, I'm not talking about one or two company because I've
All
worked with many
companies,
big
yes.
sizes of government organizations. There, if you go to the management and they say, boss, I need this management means I'm talking about including the top management up to CEO
also.
level.
Yes.
The government who appoints you on that particular things, you are directly responsible to them and you don't have a direct access to them always.
Correct.
Because they are mostly are the ministers in the board.
Correct.
And now if you go to CEO, he doesn't know about it. Frankly speaking, if you don't do the audit, they are more happy about it. So
Hence, I would like to say it is a specific country specific things which have handled
I'm
separately.
talking about a
Not really,
region.
not really. Even in
No,
India, you will
it
find
is-
such scenarios.
let me tell you, this is not one country I'm talking about. I'm talking about a Middle East region.
Even India also, you find lots of such companies.
So then, hence I said the way you like organizational change management process, we have to
Absolutely.
bring it into picture.
We can explain that he's talking about in-house internal audit,
Yes.
and the scope.
Correct.
Like Sundar said, there is a charter which gives full
This is the basic principles you have to follow. Hence I thought, if you want to discuss that, how do you really implement a basic audit approach, charter, buy-in, management represent, all this is like, not the topic of today. If you want to go in depth, still we are having another 3 areas to cover, like, cloud computing and other 2 areas. Hence I thought, the basic thing is, yes, it's a basic problem. It's organization level, buy-in. We have to make the organization to buy in this. We should do it as a separate, a strategy level, we should discuss that, not at the execution level.
Correct.
It's a strategy problem.
So management buy-in comes only when you talk to the client, you talk to all of them.
Yes.
Even then, if they don't cooperate or you feel they are not helping you, at the end of the day, it's your own best judgment and experience and intuition that comes. And so what you do is you use your experience, judgment, talk to your competitors, talk to your peers, talk to your industries, other colleagues in the industry, find out what risks they face. Because you are at 0 day, you will be at 2 years, 3 years, 5 years or 90 days. When I came to insurance from banking or mutual fund, it was first time. But I didn't stop there. I floated a risk forum, got other companies. I got so much of help from other companies. They think I know everything, but actually I learned from them only.
Yeah.
So
And one more thing add to here is, you try to find out what were the areas in last 3 years or 5 years where there was, risk was not
Absolutely
identified,
right.
which has hit the organization. It could be a reputation risk, it could be a margins or the financials problem, etc. If you create a database of that and go to and bring it to the table, these are 20 instances where it has hit our organization.
correct.
And what is the
Root cause.
opportunity cost we have lost in this?
Also root cause analysis.
Business what you have lost, root causes. Can we do this? If you bring those kind of statistical information, it will help you to go
So
forward.
1 month will definitely go in planning. Your boss will say, "Kuch kaam nahi kar raha hai," and anyway he's happy because you are not anyway. He's okay if you, as long as you don't produce those dangerous reports. So, but yes, if they ask you, say I'm planning strategy.
Yeah.
So that's
Sure, I think you are having some question or share some.
last resort.
Maybe it will cover some exception will be pointed in this report. Whatever your scope limited for ABC, but in our view, these 4 areas and coupled with the objective summary, which you just said, objective information, not subjective. As far as objective, this will come. In spite of your scope limitation, I have no argument.
Yeah.
It's your final authority. You are the final authority.
What he's
But
saying is you will,
as far as my profession, ethically or otherwise also, I should mention these are the area which we.
this is a very interesting point. This is a clause that is available in charter. In the event of any emergency issues or serious issues of nature that is found, we have every right to go out of the scope and point it out to the management.
This
That we
much
always
authority
use.
we can exercise. This much
Absolutely.
authority as a third person we can exercise.
So nobody can question you because you have that
Ah,
authority.
you-
Sure, we will go forward.
A good point. So let's go forward. Look at another area of challenge, which is very, very emerging, already emerged, and it has come in India now in a big way. And so that's the cloud computing area. Very, very, this is very, very key. And again, technical risks, operational risks, threats. What are the independent audits, as I mentioned earlier, that you could do? Risk assessments are whether completed. Have you done a layer-based risk assessment? Have you made application-based risk assessment? Have you made a transaction-based risk assessment? These are very, very key. And again, you must do these risk assessments keeping in mind C1, C2, C3, C4, which is confidentiality 1, 2, 3, 4, integrity 1, 2, 3, 4, and availability 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, layer by layer. So it's very, very important here to get involved earlier and do risk assessments. Otherwise, will be swept. Again, what are the business continuity elements? There are now instances in the last 2 years where cloud has a problem. There have been in disasters. So there are lessons to be learned. The 4 contingency plan is very, very important. So what happens if service provider goes bankrupt, service provider is not able to service, or there's a disruption, how would you operate, etc., etc., etc. So this is key. Again, what are the information assets? I just mentioned C1, C2, C3, A1, A2, A3. That's the same point, information assets. Again, what are the regulatory legal arrangements? This is very, very tricky. Most regulators do not permit today data of customers in the cloud, especially in Indian subcontinent, even in Singapore, even in India, and many other subcontinent or Asia. Again, even in Europe, US, there are restrictions. It's not there. There are privacy law. You might say private cloud. What's the security? That might be just a nice brochure caption. But you must drill down to the security. Then you'll find security is all zilch. Is there a technical study done on the security of cloud? Is there a technical paper? Because you might say that this mine is highly secure and all that, scalable, flexible, have 5 levels contingency planning. But is he really having all those kinds? Because some of these cloud initiatives are by not necessarily very seasoned service providers with good infrastructure. There are a lot of young entrepreneurs who ventured into this area. Nothing wrong with them, or may not be, they might be great, but security is another area of concern. Yeah.
A question here. I mean, we're talking about the cloud computing and talking about the auditing on that sense. Well, the point here is that when you're talking about the audit, we definitely have 2 ways that we can go and check in case if they have a private cloud or they have a global cloud, and then probably we can look into it from their controls perspective. But also, are we checking it from the perspective that what is the ideal scenario that they should have? Because I think for that you need to have a real understanding of the systems that they have in place. And because cloud today, why it's so complex, as I understand, because there are various ways to implement it.
Correct.
So I mean, the question here is the expertise. So are we how that expertise is brought into, because I think that's the key thing.
Correct.
Because I think more of things, because cloud being new, so there are very less standards and there's very less knowledge base is available around it. So I think when you go for audit for such kind of technology oriented systems, then what happens is you see that these audits are done without processes, any existing process in being placed, which can use as a backbone, but it actually turns out to be a manual process more than a system-oriented process, where you land up in a trouble later on when reports is generated, because lots of the points, controls, areas are not even touched about, because we have only checked upon their checklist and we had no checklist in place.
No, that's again dangerous. You must do a risk assessment now and slowly work out, carve out a checklist.
So I mean, there's 2 parts to it. So basically, I mean, I need to have my level of expertise on that. So
Absolutely.
So what is the standard? The question here is that how you would judge that, okay, I have done my homework completely, because I might be I fall short on my system knowledge, the way they have implemented
So
cloud.
you're saying there is a need for a framework or a standard.
True.
There are a lot of guidance and inputs given on ISACA website. You can go through that. Very wonderful stuff. That probably again doesn't give you 100% completeness control. You still have to work your way out and find out what's your client doing. Because the situation, as you rightly said, could be different. But it's an evolving area.
Yeah, just to add here, let us say we went through this outsourcing business or a subcontracting project. So whatever the due diligence we used to do on a subcontracting means how is his capabilities, what kind of governance model is having, is he credit worthy, okay, is his technology is robust, the performance, okay, confidentiality he can maintain. So we had some of our own parameters there. Similarly, same thing we can make a replica of that, make some broader changes. It's like doing a due diligence audit when you want to acquire a company or subcontract something. It is evolving. Maybe there are some white papers etc. available in the net, but they are not 100% proof, as rightly said Sundar. We have to take that and we have to practice it. It has to evolve.
I mean, that is more of an evolving. thing.
Evolving as of yes.
The risks in cloud could be. Huh. Oh, so you're saying you need a kind of a structure, framework, checklist to at least risks which are. It is there actually. It's there in the ISACA website. You can go through that. Whatever I've done here is slightly picked up
So
from
you
there.
want to share something? Yeah.
This is regarding the service provider of the
Cloud.
cloud computing. So their security audit, if it is a reputed firm, you can rely on that security audit report. Otherwise, in the SLA itself, we can add a clause that the security levels can be verified.
Sure.
By the auditors of the client.
Correct.
See, I just want to quote one of the example, we did one of the audit. Like for example, you want to fix something. You are having a remote access. You are having a remote access login. You can log in and you can fix some problem and come back. Like the way you give database patch or something to a customer. We have seen in one of the customer place, you actually log in through a port. You have your password and access control everything. Then you do it and come back. As soon as the session is actually second happens, session expires. But we observed it was available for next 24 hours. That port was available to access by anybody. So it was a risk there. So these are some of these things when you are really working on a remote login, and the same concept applies for cloud computing also. So are your network layer is how robust it is, what kind of security has been implemented there. So then will you be able to after a session expires, will the earlier screen of a customer again comes to a next customer, like the way we are having in internet ATM problems. So all these things are applicable there also. Yep.
I like to park your point, but you made a valid point on a framework, risk-based checklist kind of thing.
I think we can take it from ISACA.
We'll conclude the session with that. I'll come back to you, answer the point. I think there is a bigger point also, other than cloud, which we thought we will address.
So let us move forward. I think we have next 10
that
minutes.
is the cyber laws. This is again a very interesting area. Especially there are a lot of changes from this year, because suddenly privacy has come into play. Customer confidentiality or information on customer data is suddenly very, very important. 5 crore is the penalty now. And many companies are not even aware of it, listed companies. And not only that, you must make appropriate disclosures in the annual report. The only thing is that there is no enforcement agency yet looking at it very carefully. That's the good side of it, but it will catch up because privacy concerns are catching up. We are, the morning you saw the Privacy Association head saying we also have do not call registry. And I, as a CR of a very, very large retail company, I can tell you, this is something I live by and a sleepless night. Because I myself get calls from fake players, and so we send SMS to all our customers: do not listen to these nuisance calling. And what do they call? They have some link, of course, with our own agents. It's a funny game.
Yep.
And you won't believe I take criminal action against these people, put them in police. Then suddenly my sales guys will come and say that, this guy is in jail, please help us. Then I use my legal machinery to take them out. It's such a funny thing. Look at the world we live in. And you spend so much of money and tons in investment on security, protecting the data, encrypting the data. My laptop has a safe boot encryption. It's so, so tough to boot it up. But look at the problem. The problem is much more bigger. It's more culture driven. People are not careful with the privacy data. People give data easily. Courier companies sell the data. When they come and they take down your name and number, that's been bought and sold. And every company's data has got price in the market, in the grey market. That's the problem. Now, I think government is already coming out with some regulation to even look at prosecution of these people. So let's see. But it's tough. So these are again there are other areas other than privacy. And each of this is there is a very big hack. And of course, cloud you've touched, virtualization is more or less the same areas. Again, you have cost, security concerns in terms of infrastructure, governance related challenges in terms of training, in terms of accountability, in terms of SLAs, in terms of gathering evidence. Then the SocGen case study, we've seen silo risks. Therefore, all this calls for a very holistic framework. Now, if you were to say GRC is a framework, GRC is more a concept. It's a philosophy. So there is still, coming back to your moot question, there is a requirement to have a IT control framework wherein you are in a position to meet a gap, do a gap assessment for your client and say, okay, these are the gaps in your report and certify the balance sheet. Today, whatever auditors are certifying the balance sheet, they are saying that controls are in, commensurate with the nature and size of the management, clause 49, but without any framework. ICAI has issued some guidelines, a big fat book, but number of pages devoted to IT control are D. So it's more of internal controls, and internal controls today are all automated controls. So you need a very, very comprehensive, holistic framework which takes care of cloud, virtualization, everything, to ensure you have a very complete approach, audit approach, to meet these emerging threats and risks. I could go on and on with more areas of risks, like integrating with technical compliance, standard risks, looking at the practical scenario, business assets today, what business should be. Again, when you look at risks are not direct straight-jacket boxes. There are subset and superset and overlapping sets, so which you will have always problem. And then this inverse element will come, which is whether it's market risk or risk, credit risk or risk. And then there is another strange animal there, which is deliberately I put it reverse. What is that risk? Can you guess what is that, which I put it deliberately? Segregation of duties, which sort of disappear in many, many client scenarios now. Imagine those good old banking days where you had the bank officer managing a bank clerk and a bank manager is looking at the sheets, tight controls, all disappearing, completely disappeared. Now we have the cloud. We don't know where we headed to. Segregation of duties is something very difficult to lay down, stress upon. And so your whole static checklist that you had will now work now, because whole scenario has changed. So you might do a look at culture separately for each of those layers: data protection, BCP, integrity, strategy, integration, connectivity. You look at resource capability, again you look at data protection resource capability, BCP resource capability, integrity capability, strategic resource capability, which are very important. So your risks are in a dimensional layer based mode now. It's no more static, it's very dynamic. And everything is changing. Business risk is also very important, and IT risk is also important. Inherent risk will affect your business, inherent risk will affect your control risk, because more the inherent risk, higher the reliance on layers and layers of control. You might need layer 1 control, layer 2 control, layer 3 control, layer 4 control. All controls will be very important if the risk is very, very high, like the 47 billion euro kind of scenario I spoke about. One trader can finish the bank, and that's the scenario we're looking at. Again, culture, changing environment also impacts strategies. If entire environment is gloomy, cost rationalization sinks in, there will be naturally a lot of BPRs within the organization, paradigm shifts within the organization. Suddenly some CEO will come saying, no, I don't want branches, change everything. I don't want decentralization, I want to centralize. Another CEO will come say, I don't want centralization. Leave everything to people there, decentralize. So you have scenarios like that, paradigm shifts. So you would need to consider all those. Changing mindsets. Somebody one of the panelists mentioned risk appetite, which is very important. So what are the things that impact the changing environment? Otherwise, it's a normal, same old audit approach or procedure, which is in the textbook of ISACA. And you have complex architecture. This is my own company's architecture. Complex systems, in middleware, several, and to this